Hello, my lovely. Welcome to the ADHD Entrepreneur. I'm Carrie Lemansky-Straub, your host and the chief weirdo around here, and I have ADHD just like you. I've been an entrepreneur and business mentor for over 25 years, but unlike most other mentors, I use a holistic approach to helping you build your business because it's not just about the nuts and bolts. It's about you as a human too. This one-of-a-kind podcast alternates between business and educational episodes for neurospicy women diagnosed later in life. I view ADHD through a strengths-focused lens and know that ADHD women are some of the boldest, risk-taking, out-of-the-box thinking, problem-solving, innovative, resilient, creative people in the business world. And that is why this podcast is unlike any other out there. I speak your language, teach ADHD-friendly business strategies, and truly believe that ADHD is your entrepreneurial edge. I don't give that one-size-fits-all neurotypical business advice shit. I don't force square pegs into round holes because you're a parallelogram, baby, and don't you forget it. Last but not least, I use a lot of humor, and as you heard, I love the swears. So if this is your vibe, this podcast is for you. Be sure to click subscribe so you won't miss an episode, and let's get into it. Hello, my lovely, and welcome back to the ADHD Entrepreneur. My name is Carrie. I'm the chief weirdo at Carrie Out Loud, and I am your host. This is I can't even freaking believe this. This is the 100th episode of the podcast, and I can tell you, I literally remember the first day that I sat down to record the first episode, and I looked at the microphone like, are you going to go or do I go first? like the microphone was going to do the work for me. Obviously that's a joke, but I remember sitting in my room, just staring at the microphone going, am I really doing this? This is so wild. And I remember I had a script for like the first 20 to 25 episodes, and then I was growing and able to do it more freely. And this podcast has truly become something I love as part of this business because sometimes on social, we can't quite go as deep, right? And so I thought that with this episode, what I would do was give a little retrospective, kind of go back to the beginning of my start online as a business owner, because I've owned businesses since I was 24. And I've mentored women all along the way in a couple of different fields, but not online. I've been online for the last 5 years. And so I kind of wanted to walk you through what that looked like, some of the successes, the failures, getting my ADHD diagnosis, what happened after that. So this may be a little longer of an episode, but we listen at 1.5 times. So hopefully it won't feel too long. I have no idea how long it's going to go because I really want to tell this full story. And I'm excited to share it with you because I am not a person who is only going to show you highlights. I'm going to talk to you and tell you all the business. So you may learn things about me that, especially if you're a friend of mine as well, that maybe you didn't know before. And so I'm really excited to dive into this. I still can't believe it's the 100th episode. And I do have a new introduction and a new outro, the beginning, the end. So listen to those and hear what's a little bit different, because most of the time we've heard it 1 or 2 times, we kind of skip past it. And I'm just so excited for where I'm at now and where I know this is going to go. It's just going to continue to grow, and I'm going to continue to be able to share with you. And I love having the duality of the episodes where I am talk about ADHD education for women later in life, and how I talk about, business specific things for women with ADHD. That kind of came about organically. I wasn't even necessarily planning to do that, but because I wanted to educate women about ADHD and help them advocate for themselves, I was like, what if I just did episodes that were half and half, and every once in a while have a coffee talk, because interviews are not my jam, but sitting and just talking back and forth with women is totally my jam. And one of the things that you may not know is that this podcast started out being called Women Out Loud and then became the Anxious Entrepreneur after that. And the reason it was initially called Women Out Loud was because I would do a live series on Instagram where I would bring in fellow female business owners and we would go live together and talk about what it was like being a woman in business. And I had a bunch of questions I would ask, and it was just like, it was a really fun series. And so when I decided to come over to the podcast, Women Out Loud seemed to be the natural thing, but I don't think anybody really understood what that meant. So then once it became the Anxious Entrepreneur, it made more sense. People were like, oh, Anxious Entrepreneur. But I'll get to all of that. So I've been in business in some form, like I said, since I was 24 and mentoring women along the way, like I shared as well. And what would happen is I would be very successful in the business that I would create, and then I would burn out and go to a day job thinking I'm just not a good entrepreneur, that I just, I'm successful and then I just fall on my face. So I guess I'm just not supposed to do this. And what I didn't know, which I will also get to, is that I had ADHD, and that's the reason why I kept hitting burnout. I didn't know I had it, and I had no idea that I needed to manage my energy or the support that I needed. So let me take you back to 2019. I became affiliated with a company that I loved, absolutely loved. And it all happened. It fell in my lap. I'd been at a day job that I really freaking hated. Again, every time I've had a day job, I've been laid off, not fired, laid off. And it's like every time the universe was trying to tell me, like, hey, Carrie, you're not supposed to be sitting at a desk. What are you doing? Then I would go do a new entrepreneurial venture and, face plant again, because I would just go hard, had no idea how to manage my energy, and fall flat on my face again and get a day job. And then the same thing would continue on and on. In 2019, I had a desk job and we were laid off as an entire department. They had created this department and ran it for about a year and a half and then closed the entire department. There's more to that if you want to hear the fuller story. I'm happy to give it to you. But that happened in 2019. A couple days after the layoff announcements, that was a Wednesday, on a Saturday, I broke both of my legs. And I had just hit my 90 days with the company. So the universe was like, really had my back. So I was able to get disability. I was able to get additional disability through the company I'd worked with because I had had that 90 days. And because of the layoff, I also got like a small amount of money to kind of, compensate. I forget like what it's called. It's not coming to me now. You're probably all screaming at me going, it's this. But I had a little bit of money. And as I was laying there with my two broken legs, I had a friend of mine come to me and talk to me about affiliating with this company. And I just went for it because the thing for me was I'm very much about purpose and mission. And there was a mission involved that really got me. And that was kind of how I entered the online world. I had two broken legs and I had just lost my two best friends and been laid off my job. So I was in a weird place in my life. Just all I had was me and my thoughts and time. And I was trying to heal. I had these legs that weren't working. I couldn't walk. And that was all in 2019. And then in 2020, I found a community of women. And it was during the pandemic. It was like November 2020. And a friend of mine started a women's group. And we are still going strong here in 2024. But these women really helped me change the trajectory of my life because I was so fractured from losing these friendships and having a broken body. And I went into this group of women pretty tentatively, like emotionally, like willing to open up and share. it took me some time. But they loved me unconditionally and accepted me unconditionally. And all I'd really known was conditional love from my friends. So they helped me start to see what was possible for myself. And then the rooms I was in were just different. I was in rooms with women who were doing all these incredible things. And I'm like, I can do incredible things. I want to do incredible things. So I decided I wanted to also create my own online business and use my skills that I had built over 25 years. And I joined a group coaching program because I didn't know what I didn't know. And I really wanted to understand a little bit more about doing business in the online space because I had been doing it for so long in person in different iterations that I really wanted to truly understand what I was doing. And that group coaching gave me pieces that I needed to understand when it came to doing business online. One of the first things I remember thinking was, how are all these women doing all this shit by themselves? It was like blowing my mind. I'm like, they are emailing this and they're all these things they're doing. Like, how are they doing this? In my mind, for some reason, I thought they were doing it all by themselves, right? No support, no help. And then once I realized they either had support on the back end from different systems and different automation and things like this, and they also had business friends who they bounced ideas off of and helped them flesh out their ideas. It like really rocked my world in the best way because I was like thinking I was just a loser because I couldn't do what all these other people do, which first of all, I should not have been comparing myself. But at that time, I didn't even know I had ADHD. I thought I had anxiety and, it was just a mess. It was a mess. But I realized that I kind of wanted to focus on women who had anxiety. That felt good to me as a business owner and to specialize in that. So that was what I decided to do. And like I told you earlier, I'm not going to just tell you the pretty parts. Right now, I'm going to tell you about one of my failures, AKA my learning experiences, because it's only a failure if you stop. And I never give up on myself. So this wasn't a failure, but that's kind of how I saw it for a really long time. So I created a membership and it was called Women Out Loud. Everything kind of went across the board and it flopped miserably. I held it open for a year. I couldn't get a member to save my life. I kept switching the price points and trying to have founding members and like nothing was working. I just couldn't understand. I'm like, what? Here was the hard part. I'd always been successful in my other businesses very quickly. Like, for example, when I was 24, I became a realtor. The national average of selling homes is 2 in your first year. I sold 20. I had incredible training, incredible support. And so I just hauled ass through the beginning and I was relentless. I had no children. I had a boyfriend at the time. So I was all in and I did really, really well. Right. So I also created a fitness business where I went to people's homes and helped them work out and train them. And I was very successful in that, so I had these businesses where I had been highly successful. And then I had this and I'm like, what the fuck? What is wrong with me? Why can't I, me, right? I was like, I'm the failure here. I didn't realize what was the underlying cause of said quote unquote failure, which I will get to. And I know you know the answer, but I will get there. I also had trouble finding clients who would work one-on-one with me. And I didn't understand why I wasn't connecting, like why the connection was off. No matter what I did, something was off. But I still kept going because I'm tenacious and I'm like, okay, I'm going to figure out what's off. I'm going to figure this the fuck out because I know what I'm capable of. I've seen it repeatedly. Like, okay, I'm going to keep figuring this out. So I started the podcast. First episode went out. Funny enough, this is right now, May 13th. first episode was May 9th, 2022. No, yeah, 2022. So that's 2 years. And it was called Women Out Loud, like I said, that became The Anxious Entrepreneur. And the person who helped me launch this podcast, like literally, she lit my hair on fire, like shoved me in a can and just shot me out. And what I realized about that experience was that she gave me guardrails and accountability for 5 weeks. And by the end, I had a podcast. I had created this in 5 weeks. And I loved it. After the first moment of looking at the microphone going, are you going to go or am I going to go? After that first moment, I realized, oh my gosh, I really love this. And it's just continued to get better as I've gone along. But my business felt like I was walking uphill both ways in the snow in my business and just didn't know what the missing piece was, why I wasn't having the success that I had had so often in my life. I was frustrated and I was mad. And I have some of my business besties who I still have now. They've gone through all of this with me and they will tell you it was just like, it was so hardcore. And I know I'm not the only person that this has ever happened to, right? Like where we just aren't, like something's not clicking. Then on March 6th of 2023, my whole life changed in a snap. 14 months prior to that, I had asked my doctor to refer me for an ADHD assessment because ADHD had come onto my radar. And I was like, there are other things I'm contending with that don't fall under anxiety and don't fall under depression, which I had been treated for 12 years. We're talking medications, the whole nine for anxiety and depression. And I asked him, my doctor, who I'd been with for 12 years, to refer me for an ADHD assessment. And he told me no. He said, you have anxiety and we have to get that under control first. And I just believed him. And I'm thinking to myself now, I'm like, really, after 12 years, if it wasn't under some semblance of control, then maybe there was something else going on. Yeah, like, I'm not a medical professional. What do I know? Like, I really was having like a second guessing myself, doubting myself in my own mind. And the thing is that I've always respected medical professionals. Earlier in my life, they've saved my life 3 times. I had life-saving surgery when I was 10, when I was 11, and the last time was when I was 33. So I always had great doctors. They had saved my life because I had like gastrointestinal issues. I just had a birth defect and they had to take care of it. And they were able to finally finish taking care of it once science caught up when I was 33. So when I was 10 and 11, they were able to like fix it enough to keep me alive to get me to 33 when I had surgery. My man cub was 2 years old, and they fixed it for the last time and I've never had that trouble again. So I just had this innate trust. And so 14 months later, I was like, Carrie, you've got to stand up for yourself here, because the more I read and the more research I did and the more quizzes and check this box, check, I looked at 16 symptoms and boom, 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 had every single one. And I'm like, I'm not fucking crazy. I'm not crazy. I know that's a loaded word, but you feel crazy because you feel gaslit. You feel like what you're saying is you're being told, no, what you think is happening is not when it is. So finally I went back and I asked him for a referral and I was relentless. I was like back and forth. He's like, you have to call this department. And I called the department. They're like, you have to get a referral from your psych. And I went back to him and I said, I have to get a referral from you. And it was like a freaking ping pong game. And I was so pissed. And then I got the paperwork in the mail and I was like, oh, holy freaking Luya. So I filled out that paperwork that night. The next day I had to go take it somewhere to turn it in. I turned it in. 6 weeks later, I had an appointment, which I am very fortunate because I know there are some countries where the wait is 2 years and longer. So I appreciate the fact that it took 6 weeks, but what it really took was a year and a half, because I had a doctor who told me that it was full of shit, like not full of shit, but like, no, I was wrong. And by the end of that 90-minute appointment, the doctor looked right at me and said, yep, you absolutely have ADHD. You have combined type. It's definitely presented in your childhood, which is something that it has to show up in your childhood. A lot of women say, I have late onset ADHD. That is not a thing. We've had symptoms in our childhood, but they look different than boys. So because we weren't climbing up the walls and running around like chickens with our heads cut off, we showed it differently. We were just missed. We were missed, right? And there were several things I told him in my childhood where he was like, yep, totally ADHD girl symptoms, right? So I had it. And the first emotion I felt was relief. I was like, oh my gosh. Thank goodness. I knew it. I knew it. Once I had all of the information and had done the research, I'm like, I know this is what I'm contending with. And then every emotion hit me at one time so hard that I didn't even know what I was feeling. And that happened for 4 months. So for 4 months, I was just in shock, I think. I was stunned. I was in my late 40s. And the other thing that was really interesting was I had identified so strongly with being an anxious person. I had anxiety and was diagnosed with that and depression. And now I have this underlying cause, the root cause, because undiagnosed or misdiagnosed ADHD can cause depression and anxiety because we don't know what's wrong with us and we can't figure it out. And then we have anxiety because we're just trying to fit in and look like everybody else. Does any of this sound familiar? Right? So then when I had the accurate diagnosis, questions started coming up like, now what? What am I going to do about my business? It's aimed at women with anxiety. That's my demographic. Who am I? Why didn't this get caught earlier? Why was I feeling angry? Why was I feeling grief? Why was I wondering what my life could have been like if I had been diagnosed sooner? And that was for 4 months. I could barely show up on social. I didn't know what to do with my business. I just felt like I was wandering around aimlessly going, what is happening to me? Why am I feeling this way? Why am I having all these weird feelings? I wanted this. I asked to be diagnosed. Why am I fucking feeling this way? This doesn't make any sense to me. And then as I started to do a little research on it and found that there were a lot of emotions that can come with it. Not every woman experience it. Some women are like, holy shit, relief, and they keep moving. But other women do feel sadness and grief and frustration at the medical system. And there's so many different things that women will contend with. And every one of us handles it different, but there are some through lines. And then finally, after about 4 months, I came out of it. I was on the other side. I had really realized what those emotions were. And I knew the day I had my ADHD diagnosis that I would be pivoting to help ADHD women. I knew it, but I wasn't there yet. I just wasn't there. I had to contend with these emotions. I had to get on medication, start treatment. I waited for quite a while and then finally got a therapist to help me process, why was I having these emotions? What was going on here? And I had run several businesses before I had this diagnosis. So somehow I had navigated it. But again, I kept hitting that burnout. Well, now I know why. Because if we don't manage our energy properly, we hit burnout. We are designed for burnout. That's why I do holistic mentorship. It is not just about the nuts and bolts of your business. It's about you as a person, because we have to make sure that we have our finger on the pulse of both things. And I pivoted to working with ADHD women because I was one, and I speak your language. And I also became an educator because I figured that I was diagnosed later in life. I could not be the only one. And that's when the community really opened up to me. There were more as women like me going through this. And a lot of them were entrepreneurs, because we are much more likely to start our own businesses because of our creativity and our ability to think outside the box and our problem solving abilities. And we tend to be risk takers, which in some areas of our life may not be so great, obviously. But in business, being a risk taker is a good thing, because that's how you just jump and start to build the parachute on the way down, right? So I got on the medication, did the therapy, and it was really weird to realize that there was just this whole there was this thing that I just didn't know about my entire life. And it was such a vital piece of information. And I had such low self-esteem and low self-worth. And I thought I was not worth anything in life. And who am I to try to lead people? Like, my gosh, lead people how was I supposed to do that? And you hear all the talk about stepping into the highest version of yourself and these kind of things, which I still think of stepping into being the best you that you can possibly be is a good way to live life. But when you don't know who you are, how can you do that? And so I had this dark night of the soul for 4 months. And then I pivoted to work with you women, to work with you. And I never looked back. I changed the podcast name to the ADHD Entrepreneur, and I started unmasking slowly but surely. And I realize now why it was so hard for me to engage with other people and have them want my services was because I didn't even really know who I was. So that must have been confusing. My messaging may have been confusing. Who I am as a person may have been confusing, because I always felt like I was just I had to be a chameleon. And I was figuring myself out day by day and just slowly unmasking and showing up more and more as me, the parts of me that I thought were quirky or weird. And I even call myself the Chief Weirdo. If you go on my website, it says right there, Chief Weirdo. And the reason is because we so often feel like weirdos in a negative connotation. I was like, fuck that. I'm taking this word. I'm making this word mine. I'm taking the word back, and I'm giving it a positive connotation, because I'm not a weirdo. I'm smart. I know what I'm doing. I help women grow their businesses every single day. And I found my people. The more I unmasked, the more you guys showed up. And I found not just my passion, but it was more of a purpose as well. And I've always had this desire to mentor women. Like I said, I've been doing it since I was young. And now I've found my people, right? So then what happens? I started getting one-on-one clients with more ease because I was showing up as myself. And the membership that I had for Anxious Women, I gave it a year. I mean, I tried everything, like I said earlier, and nothing. So when I was in the tub, in case you don't know the story about how the office hours came to be, I was in the tub one day, and all of a sudden I was like, what if I do office hours that's only for entrepreneurs with ADHD? That's not out there. There's office hours, there's other memberships, but not like that. So I made a graphic. We were on our way to a concert. I put the graphic up, and then I'm like, what did I just do? And that was okay, because that's how I roll. It's like, throw it out there. And I was scared. What if I fail again? Even though I hadn't failed, I had learned. And I realized that when I opened the doors to Women Out Loud. I had created all of these things in Mighty Network, and I had made this entire space. And then I was having people come into it, and I'm like, this time I'm doing it the opposite way. I'm going to see if people want to come in by creating a wait list. And if people start to get onto the wait list, then I know this is something I'm going to move ahead with. I put that wait list out. Y'all started jumping on it, and I was like, oh, I'm all in. So, women started showing up. So not only had I had one-on-one clients come with more ease, I also had women coming into office hours, the ADHD entrepreneur office hours, which is where women come in. You get to ask me any questions you want. I'm a high-level business mentor. I usually work with women who have been in business for 2 or more years, but I love people who are in the beginning of their businesses as well. And so I wanted to have a place where I could answer questions and give answers as a high-level business mentor to people who are newer. And that was why I created this. So I was so excited. And the first meeting, as women started showing up, I remember about 15 minutes before the membership start, like before my first call, I got teary-eyed, and then I got chills, and then I got teary-eyed, and then I got chills, because the group of women who had held me up for the last several years, it was like I was creating my own version of this for women with ADHD. And it hit me like right before the first meeting. All of a sudden I was like, shit, no, shit, you can't cry. You can't go in there crying. But I just had the chills, and I knew, it was like I finally knew that I was heading in the right direction with this specific element. And it was one of the best decisions that I've made, because so many of the women inside are loving it because of the community aspect. They are hearing questions from other women and getting answers they didn't even know they needed, and that's how a community works. That's how a cohort works, especially if you're in the room with other ADHD women. And so that's growing. And then my one-on-one clients tell me all the time that having a woman who has ADHD, they don't have to explain themselves. I just get them because we both contend with some of the same hard times, or imposter syndrome, and some of the other things that like come real rejection sensitivity that really hit harder as ADHD women. I'm not saying that women in business don't hit up against challenging times, but for ADHDers it's like turned up to an 11, and so they don't have to explain themselves. I'm not trying to put them in a box or pigeonhole them or tell them there's only one way to do things. And it's like, how many programs are we going to buy? How many programs are going to sit in our inbox that we never look at, because they're made for neurotypical women? And it's not that it's like bad or good. It's that we are simply different. The way our brains work are different. We have a neurological condition. It's not a mental health condition. It's a neurological condition that can come with co-conditions of anxiety, depression. But sometimes when women take ADHD medications, those things subside because the proper condition is being treated. And I wanted to tell you this story because this is 5 years in the making. And I had to go down the path the exact way I did, meet the exact people I did. It's kind of one of those sliding door moments, right? It's like, what would happen if you go through the sliding door? What would happen if the door closed on you, right? Things go a different way. And I remember just being so devastated when I had to close Women Out Loud. But now I see why. And I am now seen as a leader. I see myself as a leader, which that is not something that I would have said to you before, because I would think like, who's going to follow me? Like these were the thoughts I would have. And one of the things that I've known for a long time is that I was meant to do something bigger than myself. And it isn't just about, it isn't solely about mentoring women in business with ADHD. It's also the education piece so that more women figure this out for themselves and go ask for care, because it changed my life by 180 degrees. I'm living proof that things can change. And I take a leadership role by leading from the front. I go first. I take these actions. I embody it. I show you all what it looks like when you've crossed that bridge and what it can be for you. And I do take a strengths focused look through ADHD. Not every woman does. Not every person who has ADHD does. But that's me. I've always been a glass half full kind of person. Somehow, even with all my trials and all my troubles and all my struggles and all my medical conditions and everything that I've gone through, I still always never give up on me. And that has just been a through line through my life. And that's what's gotten me to where I am today. So I'm telling you all of this because I don't want people to think that it's just the shiny parts. There's a lot that goes into building a business. Is it simple? Yes. Is it easy? No. Is it worth it? Absolutely. Because I know there are so many women who sit at a 9-to-5 desk job and they're like, I can't do this again anymore. There are some people who find jobs that are, they work for an employer, but their job is so varied because we have interest-based brains and we love novelty. We like new things and we like the things we are interested in. So if you find a job where you work for someone else and it's super varied, that's awesome because it keeps you interested. But a lot more women like to take it into their own hands, especially since in the corporate world, there are glass ceilings and all this other shit. And so instead we're like, okay, I'm going to build my own table and I'm going to build as many chairs as I want to. And you can all sit down with me and we're going to make this shit together. And we are going to make our own businesses and make our own way and do our own thing because we are creative. We have so many things going for us that when we have somebody there to help us be accountable and to give us guardrails, almost like I was talking to one client, when you're bowling and a kid goes to bowl and the bumpers come up on the lane. I'm not saying you're a child, okay? Don't take it that way. But those guardrails are important for us because we will go way outside and we need somebody sometimes to rein us back in to simply keep us on track. And an accountability, if somebody knows that they have made their, like I ask my clients, what do you want me to hold you accountable to this week? Every single week I ask that. And then the next time, the first thing we start off with is those accountability items. And you have a 95% higher chance of accomplishing what you put on that list if you have a time and day scheduled with another person to be accountable to them. It is not that you're a child. It's not that you're stupid. It's not that you're lazy. It's not that you're not driven. It's not that you're not motivated. You have a brain that works differently. And the two things I know that help us the most are guardrails, accountability, or both. Not everybody needs both, but one of those two. If you have one down, but the other one is not your jam, having somebody help you with that does help you get further. And it took me a while to figure all this out. It took me a while to get here, but I didn't give up. That was it. Even if you're at a desk job and you are figuring out a business on the side because you want to get away from that desk job, keep going one step at a time. You can absolutely make that happen. It's available to you. Everything that you could possibly want is available to you. There are so many human beings out there who have ADHD who do amazing things. And I wanted to just tell you, you are not just undone laundry. You are not just someone who can't do the dishes. You are not just somebody who uses dry shampoo every few days, for a week, or doesn't take a shower for 3 or 4 days. That does not make you who you are. That's part of something you contend with. We contend with executive functioning problems and issues. But there are PhDs, CEOs, and everything in between who have ADHD, actresses, singers, like so many women have ADHD, and so many are undiagnosed and find out later in life and start talking about it. You're not alone. It's not just a you thing. And you can be fucking genius and brilliant and stare at your laundry for weeks on end going, I can't do it. That's part of ADHD. Beating yourself up for that is pointless. It really is. Because there are these other incredible things that you can do. And again, that is why I look through a lens of strength when I come, because what I realize is that I made it my whole entire life up until the day of my diagnosis, still getting through the world somehow and having a lot of success along the way. And I continue to remind myself of that. One of the things I say to a lot of my clients and also my friends when they're having a harder time is, you have gotten through 100% of your hardest days so far. You have an epic track record. Don't forget that. The hardest days of your life so far, you have gotten through. So just know you will continue to do that. And I wanted to share one more little story that might make you giggle. I'm not an asshole, okay? But when somebody who's my doctor tells me I don't have something when I do have something, I get a little saucy. And so I finally saw the doctor who told me, no, not get my assessment, and no, I have anxiety, not ADHD. And I finally saw him in person for the first time since before the pandemic. And I grilled his ass. I I did. I didn't mean to be a jerk, but I was so angry. And I didn't speak to him like in a way of anger, but I was very curt, a little bit sassy, a little bit saucy. And I wanted to know what experience he'd had with women with ADHD and what his perspective was. And he had the gall to say that because of TikTok, people were thinking they had ADHD. And because of that, there's a spike in diagnosis and it isn't always accurate. And ADHD is one of the most overdiagnosed and underdiagnosed things in women. So then I asked him, well, what kind of training do they give you on ADHD? And he said, oh, the norm. I'm like, I know the norm. The norm is like 94% get 0 in their 4-year residency. That's an actual statistic. And I said, well, because Kaiser's huge, right? This is like a big entity. I said, well, what kind of continuing education does Kaiser give you on ADHD, especially in women? And he's like, oh, none. And I'm thinking, this is the dude who thinks he's qualified to tell me that I couldn't have an assessment? The reason I'm ending with this story wasn't to talk about, I was a little bit saucy and sassy with him. It is in case you suspect you have it and you continue to get gaslit, keep fighting for yourself. You know you better than anyone else, and if nobody's listening to you, keep looking. And it is not about shopping for a diagnosis because you want it. It's about finding someone who will listen to you and truly get you assessed properly if you want an assessment. Because an assessment is not just to rule in ADHD, it is actually to also rule out other issues like complex post-traumatic stress disorder, learning disabilities, dyslexia, all types of other traumatic head and traumatic brain injury causing, like there are other things that they are ruling out and then ruling ADHD in. Okay. So keep fighting until you find somebody who will listen. You're not a failure. You're not lazy or any of these other things you've come to believe because you've had more negative messages coming at you your whole life because of having ADHD undiagnosed. We have more negative messaging coming at us our whole lives. And then we start beating up on our own self too. And the truth is, you may have a neurological condition and your brain has developed differently. And that's really what's happening to you. And so that's why I call myself an ADHD educator, an advocate, and why I specialize in women with ADHD who are entrepreneurs. One of the best jobs for us is entrepreneurship. And all I want for you is to know that life can be different. It can be better. You can treat and manage your ADHD. You can have a successful business. And that it's okay to keep fighting for yourself. It's so funny. We have executive functioning, it's like calling, making appointments, filling out paperwork. These are all things that are like, oh my gosh, like the bane of our existence. But don't give up. Don't give up. And I am so grateful that you are here for episode 100. Hopefully you listened in 1.5. So this episode's like 22 to 25 minutes instead of 40 something. But I wanted to take you back from where I started and the struggle times and the difficulties until I finally found the missing piece. And maybe the missing piece is different for everybody, right? Maybe it isn't the ADHD that's the missing piece. It could be some kind of messaging tweak because you already know you have ADHD. So, there could be other things at play here. But once you lock it in and you start sitting in that pocket and you lean in, it will happen for you too. And I used to just believe that, okay, it's just not going to happen for me. Why do I keep going? Why do I keep doing this? Why would I keep putting myself through this? It's because I know that this isn't just a passion for me, because our passions go all over the place, squirrel, love new hobbies, etc. But this is a purpose for me because I have been loving women in business since I was 24 fucking years old. This isn't going anywhere for me. All I needed was to understand who I was best to help and what I could do for them and what kind of outcomes they could have because of that help. And once I figured that out, it all clicked and became better. And I just want you to remember that that can happen for you too, because truly I did not believe that it could be better. And all the things that women were saying and how much growth you can have in your business. And I was just starting to think it was all bullshit. And it's not. I'm living proof of it, that you grow and that you can succeed and you can take it to where you want to go. It's simply about figuring out the way it works for you, not what anybody else is telling you you should do or supposed to do. The things I hear my clients say all the time, I think I should do it this way, or I'm supposed to do it this way, or this is how everybody's telling me how to do it. Yeah, ignore everybody else on social media who's not neurodivergent when it comes to business mentorship, because they have different brains than you do. And I know I'm a unicorn. I know that I have 25 years of experience, that I have ADHD, and that I relate well to other women with ADHD who are business owners, and that I can give you ADHD friendly, business strategies and can truly help you move your business forward. But there are ADHD mentors out there who have ADHD themselves, who can and will understand you. Find us, seek us relentlessly, because that too is another thing that can help you change the trajectory of your businesses. Instead of somebody saying, you have to do it one way, you have to do it one way. I just did a reel about this. Is there one way to wrap a present? Is there one way to get to your local Target? Is there one way? No, there's thousands of ways to do things. So if somebody is telling you there's only one way, run, Forrest, run, far and fast, because it's not true. And if anybody tells you you have to follow these rules, we see so many rules on Instagram. This is how you get the algorithm to no, rules are arbitrary. It's all made up. We're all making it up as we go along. Ask any higher level entrepreneur and they're going to tell you they have anxious times too. They have frustrating times too. I remember when I went into my first really high level mentorship in a room that I thought, quote unquote, I didn't belong in, but I knew I needed to be somewhere that people were like 100 steps ahead of me. And when I saw that the concerns and the fears were almost exactly the same, it evened that playing field for me so much. Get in with women who are elevated, get into elevated rooms, even if you feel like you don't, quote unquote, belong there. It's bullshit. You do belong there. You belong anywhere you want to be. You belong in any room. You belong in any place, any space. Be big, be loud, be who you are. Work to unmask. Work to get away from being a chameleon. Because it takes time. We have learned it over time. We have to unlearn it over time. And let me tell you when I say, believe me when I say this, I am still working on unmasking. I'm so much better on my social media. I am a lot more free there finally. It feels so good. But it took me time to get here. And I'm pretty much fully unmasked now. Like there are no shits I give. If somebody likes me, great. If I'm for them, great. If I'm not, that's great. Imagine being for everyone. That'd be exhausting. And I used to think, I have to have all these followers and that's how you succeed. Nope, not true. You have to have people who like you and you like them and they're engaged and you're engaged with them. There are these ways of doing business that are not like so huge and so out of what you think you're capable of. You are capable of anything. And you don't have to have hundreds of people supporting you. You can have one or two people supporting you here and there as you're setting up things, setting up systems, but you can do it. And I'm not here to be your cheerleader and rah, rah, sis, boom, bah. I am literally telling you from the depths of my soul, you can do whatever you put your fucking mind to. It is not about eating the elephant all at once. Take one bite, then the next. If you have a dream or a vision or a goal or something bigger than yourself, something outside yourself, take one or two steps towards it. Start researching it. Start looking something up online about, answering questions around it. How do you start to move towards it? That's it. That's all it takes to begin. You don't have to know the outcome 50 steps down the road. We want to. But if you would have told me 5 years ago I would be where I am right now, I would have laughed in your face. Direct, like just right in your fucking face. I would have been like, oh. But now I believe it because I'm here and I didn't give up. And I just kept taking steps and I just kept taking steps and finally found things that lined up with who I am as a human and figured out certain things about myself as a human. And I did work on my inside that I didn't even realize that I needed to do because I have ADHD and I didn't know I was contending with that. And I needed to process that too. And so it is my hope that this episode gives you an understanding of my personal background so that you know we're all on a level playing field. I'm just 10, 20, 50 steps ahead, 100 steps ahead of you. But I'm just like you. Don't forget it, please. It took me time to get here. If you are building something that is on concrete, look at your bigger vision and don't just settle for something because it's now. Take steps towards the vision that is built on concrete, not on quicksand. You can have that. You really can. And with that, I see you. I love you. I am rooting for you always. And stay extra magical. Stay weird. You're a unicorn. And I'm not saying, oh, you're such a cute little unicorn. No, like you're a spicy little spicy brain unicorn. And I love you so much. And I will see you next time. Bye. Oh, hey, you're still here. Thank you for listening all the way to the end. Be sure to check out the show notes for all the ways to follow me. And of course, my goal is to find and help as many women with ADHD get away from the 9-to-5 grind, because it's just not designed for our neurospicy brilliance, and there are other ways to do life. So by subscribing, sharing, and giving a 5-star review, it helps other women find this podcast as well. And if there's an episode you really love, please feel free to take a screenshot and share it on your social and tag me in it so that I can thank you personally. Until next time, you spicy brained unicorn. Bye.